So now I want to do, just to lead into this afternoon, is just to give you a little bit about my background, how I got into this field, so you can connect with that and see how that fits in with NLP, or your journey in NLP. I've always been highly fascinated in the interactions between people. And as a young person at school, I was always fascinated as how some people got things, how other people didn't get things, and how different people were good at different activities. So somebody can be very good at sport, but not necessarily good at another thing, or as good at another thing. Somebody else could excel at maths, let's say, and not excel at sport. And I worked it out as a young, that we're all pretty good at something. And now I think we've all got that ability to be a genius in our own activities. There's something out there that we all do very good. Unfortunately, I think specifically the system I was educated in didn't necessarily recognise certain talents. It recognised the stereotype student who tended to fit into that one style of intelligence. It didn't necessarily recognise different ways people learned. It didn't recognise different traits and so on. So, for example, somebody said to me this morning about I'm quite an animated person. At school, that animation was somebody who was a real fidget, to be honest with you. So, and I found it very hard to sit still. Even now I find it very hard to sit still. So if I was in this modern day system, I'd probably be categorised as hyperactive. Because I'd be sitting in my chair at school, very enthusiastic about what was being taught, but I'd be the kid to be like this in the class. And the teacher would go, sit still! So I used to spend much of my day, because we're the same teacher as primary school, I used to focus so much on sitting still. Or when the teacher goes, don't move! I couldn't focus. So I recognised I needed to move to learn. And I recognised that other people could just sit still. There's a guy in my class at school, it looked like he was always daydreaming. And the teacher would go, concentrate! But this guy happened to be able to get 10 out of 10, 20 out of 20 on all the tests. He was just able to absorb in this altered state. And what I know now is that he and I both put ourselves in learning states through our bodies in a different way. I needed to move, he needed to sit still. What the teachers didn't recognise was that was our way. That was our way. So I worked it out at a pretty young age, and everybody is unique. Everybody learns differently. And everybody has that ability to excel. And I always brought that into that's why I got interested, I think, in this type of technology. My first career, when I sort of got into careers, was in financial services. And prior to that, I'd done a multitude of different jobs. But I found my groove when I got into financial services sales. And this was 1986. And, this was pre-financial, any regulation. It was pre-Financial Services Act completely. At that time, there was 258,000 people selling unregulated investment products. Insurance bonds, precursors for unit trusts, and so forth. 258,000 people selling them. And I suspect that at least 150,000 of those was a rotating door system. The insurance industry used to work on a system, a rotating door. You bring a lot of people in, you throw them out there in the deep end, they'll either survive or they won't survive. And there was a time when a company, I think Heavy Life, was recruited so many people that some statistician did some research there that everybody would know a family member they carried on recruiting that level who actually worked for a So that's how the industry was at that time. I got into it and attended a sales course. We had a week-long training course, and again, I know some of you are working in financial services, but we had a week-long training course, 4.5 days, but that was sales training, and half a day was on product knowledge. We went out into the field, highly motivated, but not knowing very much about products, and actually not having many products to sell. In fact, we really only had 2. So there we went off into the field, highly motivated, selling our products. And you know when you learn something in the classroom, for a previous week, what we'd done a role play. So here I am, Peter's my client, I'm learning all of these communication processes, which I was fascinated in. When I found out about, when I learned formally to sell, it made so much other stuff that I'd learned previously, kind of made it all fall into place, because I knew so much of what we were learning anyway, it just clicked for me, and I really found that groove in the communication systems. So in the class, where I was, we would go through various, I went to learn a script, go for a script, I would roll my words off to Peter, he would answer, he would have an objection, I would come back with my standard response. Then we practiced it on the telephone. So we did this whole rote training for a week, and then it came to the morning of the first day when we all had to get on the telephone. Interesting by-story, I went for this job. I was on crutches, I had a broken leg. That's one of the reasons why I went for a job in the first place. So there I was, going for my first day, on my crutches, brand new suit, polished shoes, I couldn't wear the other one, ready, hobbled into the office in the morning, and the MD said, right, everybody now on the phone. Now, cold calling. Now, to me, I had no problem. Okay, that's what you want us to do, cold call. We practiced this all last week. So here I am, I'm ready. Give me the list. In those days, what we were given was a load of cards. This is no computers, pre-computers, a load of index cards with people's names on, or your own leads that you generated. We soon worked out that the leads we were given were no good. Although they promised you leads, what they gave all the new people was the leads that everybody else had used. You've been down this road?
Yes.
Yeah. The leads that everybody else had used. There was no Data Protection Act. Nobody could get taken off a list back then. So, you just phoned up somebody who had been phoned up the week before, and quite often the person at the end of the line, they wasn't always very polite because they'd been persistently called by investment salespeople. Okay? It was equivalent to these machines. At least we were people calling people. Now you've got these machines calling you constantly throughout the day. Now, interestingly enough, when you think about state, I was pretty cool with doing this, a bit nervous, to be fair. But all the other people who had excelled in the training were finding reasons to go to the toilet, to leave. Some people would excuse themselves and never came back. Because this now was, if you like, the real deal. This is the real thing. And the people who have been there for many months or even years, you could see them in the corner, they were on their coffee. Back then they could smoke in the office, they were smoking cigarettes. They're a little bit jaded. Have you ever seen the film Glengarry Glen Ross? Jack Lemmon. That represents a typical sales office with the new enthusiastic guys. There's a hot shot somewhere in the room and the jaded ones. These were the jaded ones. So most of the people were getting scared. I had no problem getting on the phone. I thought, that's what you've got to do. That's what you've got to do. Let's go on the phone. I followed the process. And it just so happened that the first person I spoke to, when I said, when's best for you, morning or afternoon, which was a part of our script, the guy said, this afternoon. I said, oh, this afternoon. Put it in my diary. I said to the guy, guess what? I said, I've just made my first appointment. He said, when did you make it? He said, this afternoon. I said, this afternoon. He said, you shouldn't have done that. You look too enthusiastic. Then you're looking as if your diary's empty. Well, it actually was. So I thought, well, I said, I used to be a little bit cocky back then. So I turned around and said, so how many appointments have you made? And then they come back with a grand old 0. We're just getting ready. It's Monday morning. We're easing ourselves in gently. Couldn't quite get my head around that at all. So by the end of that phone session, I'd actually made 4. And I thought, this is pretty good. Maybe this is for me. And then it comes to go and do the real thing. Funny enough, the appointment was down here in Croydon. My office was back there, was in Oxford Street. Come down to Croydon to go on this appointment. There I was, on these crutches, walking to the guy's, come on public transport, walking up to the guy's door. And as I got closer, I felt a fear building me. Now, it has come up. And I was only 22 years of age, and all of a sudden I felt doubt in myself. This kind of, that maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this. Have you ever felt this sort of thing? So I decided, I'm going to go back and do what I did previously. And I walked away. And as I got away, I began to feel a sinking feeling when I got away. That was an emptiness. And as I sat there, I thought, what's worse, this empty feeling and not knowing, or the fear but actually giving it a shot? So I thought, this empty feeling is actually worse than that. So, and the bill was opposite. They must have thought this guy's seriously confused about which direction he's going as I move forward. And I got closer to the door. I got a feeling again. No. Empty. So I thought, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just carry on walking, I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to knock on his door. And once I've knocked on his door, I'm not able to run away, like we used to when we were kids. I've got to, like, now stay there and see what happens. I go, okay, deep breath. Here it is. 45 minutes later, he was my first client. I got back to the office now with a completely different feeling. Elation. Now, I wouldn't have had this elation had I not broke through the fear. You know, there's a good book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's like, you know, I would not have broke through that. There was a need for me to break through that. And what I didn't realise was back then, I was going through several processes, what I now know to be NLP, in how I deal with these different states. These are different states I was experiencing. And now I am elated back in the office. And we used to have a bell, if you sell something, ding, ring the bell. This is very 80s, by the way. This part of the story is very 80s. You know? Back in the day when you were taught as a part of the course, you know, it was very macho. Yeah? He who shook hands the hardest and the longest was in control. You know, never trust anyone with a weak handshake. That's what he was told. So, like, if we go up to a guy and go, "How you doing?" There'd be 2 guys, "Yeah, I'm all right, yeah, right." Squeezing the hell out of each other's hands. You know, it's probably like the people my age now who have chronic arthritis from the handshakes, of the firm handshake, and never look away. If you look away, you're in doubt. Pleased to meet you. So anyway, I got back there and I said, I sold my first policy. And then these guys said, "Do you know what you just had?" I said, "No, beginner's luck." "Oh, thanks." So I thought, that gave me so much motivation. I thought, I'll show you what beginner's luck is. And I had beginner's luck that month 28 times. And I became a top salesman in that company in my first month. And 4 years later, I bought the company. I became owner. I bought it off the guy who actually interviewed me, myself and another guy.